In this module, we'll focus on various parts of the old photo that can be healed using certain filters and different healing tools. In this video, we'll walk through a process of reducing the artifact elements on the man in the hat. So let's go ahead and get started. So I'm going to go ahead and zoom in so we can see the man in the hat more clearly. In the previous module, we were able to bring back a lot of detail that was seemingly lost on this portion of the photo. So just making a quick comparison, yet again, I'm going to turn off the visibility of this global curves group and man in hat group. And again, we can see just how incredibly washed out this part of the image was. Really the most washed out portion of the old photo. We didn't have a whole lot of data to really work with, but just enough to bring back to where I think the results are going to work. However, the side effect of this is we now have these artifact elements on this part of the image. This banding or stepping, if you want to call it that. Basically, these very abrupt or harsh changes between the various tones that we see here, most noticeably on his white shirt. So we want to kind of even that out a little bit, kind of reduce the intensity of it, make it less obvious using some specific filters. Now, I do want to point out there's no way we're going to get it to be perfectly consistent with the surrounding elements, just because, again, we just didn't have a whole lot of information to work with starting out. So there's just very little data there to work with. The first thing we want to go ahead and do is create a merged copy of everything we've done thus far, a flat layer, basically a composite of all the steps we've taken so far. So hit Shift, Control, Alt, and E on your keyboard, and that generates a new layer containing all of that information. The next thing I want to do is right-click this layer, convert it to a smart object. This will allow us to add smart filters that we're going to be using to kind of rectify those artifact elements, and we'll be able to revisit those smart filters and adjust their settings as many times as we want. But before we do that, let's go ahead and go to Select, Load Selection, and where it says Channel, let's go ahead and choose Man in Hat, bringing up that selection we created in the previous module. We're going to have this selection be applied to a layer mask so that the filters are only visibly being applied to this portion of the image. So with that selection in place, click on the Layer Mask button, and it basically applies it to that new layer mask. And you can see now what that looks like. Everything around the man in the hat will be masked out. Let's go ahead and zoom in once again. And let's also take this new layer that we have here, drag it into a group that I created in between videos and titled Artifact Repair. All right, so now let's go up to Filter, and we're going to go to Noise. And under the noise category, we're going to choose median. So let's go ahead and kind of drag this preview over here. We can see the man in the hat's shirt. And basically what this type of filter does, it's reducing the difference between these pixels by changing their values, changing the values of some of them. And you're going to see how it kind of starts to simplify what we have here. So you want to basically increase this radius up just a little bit. If we go too far, you can kind of see what happens, where you're going to just kind of end up with not a lot of information there. I still want to preserve the kind of those tonal variations. So we're going to come way back down. And I think right around 5 will work. We still have enough of that tonal information there to work with to feel like his shirt's not just this completely flat object. All right, great. Commit to that. There's a smart filter right there. The next filter we're going to add is also under the noise category. We're going to choose Add Noise. And what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and increase this a little bit to where we can start to see that noise. And I actually think maybe right around 5 will also work for this. So you kind of see that noise that we added there. And let's actually go back into that filter once again. You just double click on it. And let's also switch it from uniform to Gaussian. Okay, just kind of feels a little bit more organic. And I'll commit to that one more time. And if we zoom just even further in here, you're actually seeing that there's a some color variation in there, and I really don't need that for this image at all, since we're working essentially in grayscale. So we'll go back into that filter one more time and just choose monochromatic. All right, great. Let's commit to that change, and then we're going to add one last smart filter. We're going to go to filter, and then we're going to go to blur, and then we're going to choose Gaussian blur. And for this, we're just going to bump it up just slightly, maybe around 1.2. So it's just kind of taking what we did there and just kind of softening it out just a little bit. All right. Now, the last thing I want to go ahead and do is we're going to choose our brush tool over here. And we're going to go ahead and paint on this mask that is associated with those smart filters. And I want to go ahead and just make sure I'm still using a soft round brush, and I'm going to double check my brush panel there. I still want to use transfer with pen pressure for opacity and flow. And basically just also making sure I have black as my foreground color. Basically just kind of painting very lightly over some different areas where I just kind of want to rein these filters that I've just applied, kind of rein them back in just a little bit. So I'm doing this just so I can have a little bit more control as opposed to just reducing the overall opacity. Really where I wanted this effect to be primarily concentrated was on the shirt area. We had a little bit of stepping on the face and on the hat. I just didn't want to lose a lot of the facial details that we have here on the face. So just kind of pulling back on that just ever so slightly. And I would recommend zooming out as well, just to see how that looks, and then toggling the visibility. And you could even kind of work over some different areas there, kind of reining that in. Now, we're also going to jump over here to the layer mask for the entire layer. And I noticed something else as well. We'll go ahead and zoom in here. We actually have a little bit of that kind of that artifact elements kind of happening right here, kind of that banding, if you will. And so we can actually take our soft round brush and just kind of paint. And we want to actually switch to white because I'm noticing nothing's happening. We want to switch to white now because, again, the man in the hat, if you look at the layer mask, okay, his selection is all in white, meaning that if it's completely in white, it's not masked. Everything is opaque, so we can see the full results of the filters we're applying here. Anything in black is completely masked out. So we want to switch to white, and then now painting on that mask with our soft round brush, we're actually revealing on this part of the image those filters that we applied, and it'll kind of help kind of reduce a little bit of that stepping or that banding, whatever you want to call it. Kind of those artifact elements that we see right there between those tonal changes. It'll kind of reduce that just a little bit more. Just in some kind of areas, we kind of had a hot spot just right there on the wall. So now let's go ahead and zoom out, just hitting Control minus on our keyboard, and you actually can hit Control 0 to have it fit the working area here. And let's go ahead and just toggle the visibility of that layer once again. And so that looks a lot better now. Now again, it's not perfectly consistent with the surrounding areas, but that definitely helps really reduce just the intensity of just those really harsh changes between those various tones that we have there on that part of the image. So stay tuned for the following video, where we're going to come back to the remnants of the blue pen marking, and we're going to start the process of using some different healing tools to begin really kind of cleaning up these different areas of the image where we still just have some remaining kind of ghosts from those pen markings. So stay tuned for that video.